nowhere do I see mention of what's going to happen to the debt. It never leaves the administration's lips. I have not seen it in a single story. I hear a lot of focus on the deficit. No mention of what happens to the debt. And I would suggest to you the debt is the threat. Why? Because if you look at what is scheduled to happen in this next year, according to the administration's own estimates, while the deficit goes up over $400 billion, the debt will go up over $700 billion in 1 year. The big difference, of course, is Social Security money that is being used to pay other bills. Doesn't get included in any deficit calculation, but every penny of it gets added to the debt. With respect to the funding priorities in this budget, there are a series of cuts here that have been previously rejected by Congress on a bipartisan basis. Let me just give you several of them that stand out. The COPS program that has put 100,000 police officers on the street. The president says cut that 100%. Weatherization assistance. When we know energy prices have skyrocketed, we know that there is really an environmental need to reduce our demand for energy. The president says weatherization assistance ought to be cut 100%. First responder grants on the Department of Homeland Security. These are grants to our firefighters and our other first responders. The president said cut those grants 78%. Clean water grants, the president says cut 21%. Community development block grants, which you ask any mayor in the country, what is the most important source of federal funds that give them some discretion, some flexibility? They'll tell you community development block grants. The president says cut that 20%. And low-income home energy assistance, the president says cut 17%. I've been asked if this is a budget that is dead on arrival. My answer would be no, it is debt on departure.
President Bush took office, as Senator Conrad reminded us, with an advantage that no president in modern history has ever enjoyed. Budget and surplus, big time surplus, $236 billion in the year 2000. His economists looked out over 10 years and they saw nothing but surpluses coming up, nothing but roses. So they estimated the cumulative surpluses would total over 10 years $5.6 trillion. We were wary of that. I was wary of it. Others of us involved in the process were. And we wanted the president not to bet the budget. After all we had done to put it into balance over a 15-year period of time, not to bet the budget on a blue sky forecast. He turned our advice down and instead effectively told the American people we could have it all. Guns, butter, and tax cuts too, and never mind the deficit. The Bush program passed, and by the year 2004, in 4 short years, the surplus was gone, vanished, replaced by a deficit of $413 billion. In nominal terms, the largest deficit in American history, from a $236 billion surplus to a $413 billion deficit in 5 fiscal years. Far from proposing to fix the budget, the Bush administration is proposing policies that will worsen it, leaving the consequences for the next administration.